Alright, now that we got the motor back from the machine shop and they're done hot tanking it and putting cam bearings in it, I went ahead and threw the blue paint back on it yesterday. And today I slid the new cam in and I just stuck the timing gear on for now to see how everything was lining up. And obviously this is gonna come back off. But that's about all I did so far, was get the cam in, make sure everything was greased up nice, and I put this back on for the oil filter. There's a little gasket that went back there. Actually, here's the old gasket. But if you get the complete gasket set, the Fel-Pro, it'll come with everything you need. There's actually, if you do get a gasket set for one of these engines, it doesn't come with the valley pan. And this is like a $30 part. So that's something you're gonna have to order extra. But it's looking good, and this is the first step towards reconstruction. The majority of the internal parts that are being used, I'll go through them. I used Chloe's for the timing set, and I went with sealed power for the rings, and they're already installed on the pistons, and I got those for the main bearings and the rod bearings, and some break-in oil from Royal Purple. I got a complete overhaul kit for the 350 transmission. It comes with all the gaskets and seals. Even though I'm not going to remove the valve body off the transmission, I'm not going to change everything. I want to do all the main seals that go like the pump in the front and the rear main seal for the tail shaft. And I got a filter kit for it. And then underneath we got the main gasket set from Fel-Pro, which does not include this $30 valley pan. Pretty expensive part, and I know they make a couple different versions of this for different years. So when you do buy a new one of these, when you get it, even though it's supposed to be the right part, make sure it matches the old one, like that one in the box, which mine matches up, so we're good to go. But just wanted to show you guys what some of the parts that were just going into this thing, what companies and stuff. The cam bearings weren't sealed power though; those were Clevites. But I got the Duralast water pump and the AC Delco fuel pump inside the house right now, so I'm not going to put them in right now. But it's coming along, and we're gonna take the next step. Alright, so right now I'm just mocking up the crank. I'm using plastic gauge. So far I got it underneath the 3. I gotta add another piece there, there. Put those caps on. I'll tighten all these down with the torque wrench, take them apart, and measure the how far they squashed, and then put it all back together again. Well, this is that plastic gauge shit, and I'll never use it again. It's the first time I ever used it. This shit does not come off. So now I gotta wipe the bearings out, and I gotta use some kind of solvent, brake cleaner, which I shouldn't be doing, to get this shit off. And it's hard enough to wipe out of the bearings, which I got easy access to get into, but the crank's a whole other story. By the way, they did check out alright. It's got perfect clearance. But this shit's gonna be, especially down in here, it's gonna be fun to get out. Well, lesson learned, you can use plastic gauge if you want, but that shit ain't for me. I'd rather use a micrometer and maybe a dial bore gauge, but nope. Lesson learned. Time to install the rope seal at the rear of the block. They give you this long seal, and what I do is I take a socket, I lay the socket in there, roll it in there as tight as I can get it. I did the same thing over on the block, and then cut the ends off flush with the block. Just make sure you get it in there nice and snug. But yep, rope seal. Cutting it off with a razor blade at the end is the hardest part. It gets very tedious trying to cut through all the whatever fiber it's made out of. Well, that's it for the rope seal. Okay, as you can see, it spins. We finally got the crank in after wasting probably more than 3 hours putting the crank in and taking it back out, because at first it would not spin at all. That rope seal on the back was so thick that it was just binding up at the fifth fucking cap in the back. And we didn't know if it was a bearing problem or what was going on, so we had to take the crank out, take the rope seal out, and we found that it spun just fine. So we negotiated the rope seal a little bit and modified it, and now that it's back in, it was really hard to turn over, but once we kept turning it, it started getting easier to turn. So this is what it's at now, and it turns just fine. I'm sure once it's running, the rope seal will break in a little bit better. But like I said, we just wanted to make sure we didn't have a bearing issue, because that wouldn't be good. Nobody wants to spend money on another set of bearings. So that's all for this update, and I'll get back on this tomorrow and start making more videos. See you then. Okay, so now we're gonna put the pistons in today. We left the crank how it was last night, and it's good to go. And if you remember, the pistons that came out of this engine were low compression. They had a pretty severe dish on them. So I took the flat tops out of that poor bastard sitting in the corner. Another Olds 350 sitting back here. So he's just sitting here waiting for another build for another day. That's going to require a little bit more money. That engine needs some work. But we'll compare these low compression pistons against the ones that I'm putting in. I need to find some space here. So these came out of the 4-barrel engine. For some reason they put disc pistons in a 2-barrel. Makes no sense to me, but whatever. There's a difference. You can see they're pretty much almost flat. And then if you come back and look at these, I mean, you could fill that up with the Great Lake of Michigan. So these are no good. I mean, they're not no good. They don't have any problem with them, but I'm not using them. All the rings have been installed on these. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to get cracking on popping them in here one by one. And I'm probably going to do them in the sequential order of the firing order. This way I don't have to turn the crank 1,000 times. You know, pop number 1 in, then spin the crank just a little bit, and then go to number 8, and go to 4, and 3, 6, 5, 7, 2, and so on. One more thing I'd like to add about that 350 in the back room that needs all that work. The reason it needs work is it blew a timing chain, and you can see where the valves hit the pistons.
Yeah.
Right there and there.
Well, these are new ones, but all right. Here's a 2000 Chevrolet.
When assembling your pistons into the block, it's important that you take something like this fuel line right here, and you slip it. Obviously, this nut won't be in the way, but you slip it over the threaded rod like that. This way, you do it on both ends, so the connecting rod threads can't scrape the bearing journal on the crank. So basically what I'm trying to say, now that I can collect my thoughts, is don't go pounding a piston in without sliding fuel line on over the rods. And you should be pretty clear to go. I got number 7 in first. I know I said I was going to do the firing order, but I started off at 7 because that was all the way down at the time. And next I'm going to rotate the crank, and I'll probably attack this one next. Or what am I saying? I'm looking at it upside down. I'll probably do this one next, because I won't have to rotate the crank. But I'm going to go ahead and slide all these on in and make sure it rotates. And then I'll pick up another video from there. So hang tight. Just in case anybody's wondering, the torque specs on this, all these main caps, you tighten them down to 80 pounds, except this back one. This gets 120. And the connecting rods, they go 42 pounds from cap to rod. So as I keep putting shit together, like the heads and all that stuff, I'll start telling you guys what the torque specs are and all that good stuff. Well, as you can see, they're all in, and I spun the crank one by one as they went in, and it spins just fine. Took me a little bit longer to do than normal, because I kind of dicked around all day, working on it, going upstairs, eating food, all that good stuff. But this is gonna wrap it up for tonight, and I'm gonna slip a black garbage bag over this thing to keep all the dirt and shit out of it. And you know, it just worked out that way that the problem piston I had, where the piston ring wouldn't come off, came out of the other motor last, and coincidentally it went back into the motor last. And it rotated just fine, and I put that piston in last. Shit, I'm tripping on shit. Fuck out the way. Anyway, I put that one in last. Didn't even plan on it to go in last, and worked out just fine. I'd spin it for you right now, but I don't have anybody down here to hold the camera. So, but I'm gonna pick it up tomorrow and we'll start again. See you then. Alrighty, Whitey, timing chain sets on, and we're gonna get ready to throw the cylinder heads on next. Just make sure when you put the timing chain on that the dots line up. That one right there to that one right there. And the fuel pump eccentric bolt, this goes to 65 pounds. That's what it says in the book for the torque specs. So sit back and relax. We'll get the heads on in just a second. Here's the brand new set of hydraulic lifters, and I don't know if this works or not, but I thought it'd be a good idea to stick them in oil. They've been sitting in it about 2 weeks, and I figured maybe if I sat them in the oil, since they're brand new, they're dry internally, that they'd soak up some of the oil and start to fill up. And I did take a little pick as soon as I can find it. But I gotta find this pick. There we go. I took this little pick. And I could work air bubbles out. I was watching air bubbles come out of these things. So hopefully that'll help fill them up. Like I said, I don't know if it works or not. It's just a theory I had. So you can give it a try if you choose to. But I'm going to go ahead and take these out, wipe them off, and put break-in oil on them. And stuff them in there. And then we'll get the heads on. Quick tip, just when you're putting the head bolts in, make sure you put some kind of grease on them, or at least oil, and just wipe it in all around with your fingers. Alright. Alright. I'd like to tell you guys the proper torque sequence on these heads and how tight they should be. And I'll even show you in a book that I have. But your torque sequence is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And all in all, when they're set and done, they need to be 80 pounds. But what I did was I did them 4 times each. I did 20, then I went and did them 40, 60, and finally I set them at 80. And I'll show you this book that I have. Well, I made the book, but still, it's from information I've gotten over time. That's just something I drew up quick to make it easy to remember. And there's other information in this book. I shall open it on this chair. Now, this isn't everything that goes on this engine. Like the fuel pump eccentric isn't on there. That's going to be 65. But this is just your general stuff that you need to know. And this book's got some interesting stuff in it. So if anybody's interested in the information I have in this book, it's got all different casting numbers for exhaust manifolds, intake manifolds, cranks, small blocks, big blocks, all date codes, casting numbers, so you can identify what's what. Heads, small blocks, big block heads, and just engine colors. But if anybody's interested, let me know, and I'll actually make a better video of this book so you guys can pause the screen and you can get any information you want out of here. But like I said, this is just information that I acquired over time. So if I was ever out shopping for an Oldsmotor, let's say like at Carlisle Fairgrounds, I'd just bring this book with me so I can identify pretty much any engine part for an Oldsmobile that I need. But anyway, heads are on, and I'm gonna go ahead and put the rockers and push rods and everything in. And I'm gonna pull the spark plugs out so it can turn over easier and give it a test spin. See you then. Here's something I want to add about the push rods. If you're going to use the same ones that came with your engine that you're taking apart and putting back together, chances are they're going to have a good amount of sludge inside of them, like mine did. And I only have this in a vise. It's barely hanging in there. But I only have it in there because I don't have anybody to hold the camera while I do this, and I don't have 3 arms. But you need to find a pick, like this. And first hold the push rod up to a drop light and look through it and see how much shit's in there. But you need to put this inside, hang on. You need to put this inside and scrape all the shit around that's in there on both ends. And blow through them. Blow the shit out and blow it into your hand. You'll see all the black chunky shit that accumulates in your hand. And then hold it back up to the drop light. And if it's really clean inside and you can see the light at the end of the tunnel and it flows evenly on both ends, you can go on to the next one. But don't forget to do that because you don't want to lose oil pressure going upstairs. So take that under advisement, and all the other push rods are in so far, so I'm going to go ahead and put the rockers on, and we'll be right back. Alright, this is going to wrap it up for this video. I'm going to make a part 1 and a part 2. And part 2 will be more accessory shit, like fuel pump, water pump, all that dumb shit. But this is the rotating assembly all put together. Let me know what you guys think. It's looking good. I put the rocker studs down to 25 pounds a piece. Alright, that's it. See you guys next episode.